All his life, Sadiq has struggled with acceptance. Of French-Algerian background, he tells me he's never truly been allowed to assimilate.
It was always difficult at school. They called me the Arab, and it's always been hard to get a job with the face I have.
Born and raised in France, Sadiq certainly sees himself as French, but says his fellow countrymen and women only ever identified him as Algerian. Growing up feeling this marginalized, it was as easy for him to fall into dealing drugs as it was to slip into despair.
There was no other activity for us, not even a youth association. There are so many members of the North African community here who need help, but the city never has enough money to help them. They feel alone in the city.
In the wake of the horrific attacks in Paris, many Muslims in this city feel more alone than ever before. In neighborhoods like this, resentment is growing almost as fast as fear is spreading. Practically everyone we've spoken with today tell us they're worried that negative attitudes towards North Africans and Muslims throughout France will only harden. At the same time, they were all too afraid to tell us that on camera. Yasser Loueti, with the Collective Against Islamophobia in France, tells me it's easy to see why so many Muslims in France feel alienated.
From kindergarten, you are always treated differently. So these kids, provided they are weak enough, they will just slip into this complex thinking that this is not my country, these people hate me, and it's normal for me to be treated separately. So there are people who get, of course, tempted by violence, criminality, and there are, of course, definitely these groups who prey on these weak elements to turn them into homegrown terrorists.
Loueti adds that so long as the French government doesn't address the underlying causes of disenfranchisement and radicalization, the situation will not improve. It's a thought that haunts Sadiq. During his troubled adolescence, he dreamt of a day when things would finally improve, a day when he'd have a family of his own. Now, though, while happy to be employed and married, he finds himself far more concerned about his 2 children and the future they'll face than he ever was for himself. Mohammed Jamjoom, Al Jazeera, Paris.